Hello, everybody. I'm Madison MacGregor, host of Mind Time with Madison, and today we are speaking with Courtney Riddle. Courtney is an advocate for sobriety and is over a year into her journey of being sober, a year and a half actually. She's also founder and stylist of Courtney Rose Style. First, we're going to just wait for Courtney to join. Hello, everybody who's joining. I'm Madison MacGregor. I'm the host of today's interview, and we're going to be speaking with Courtney Riddle. She's an advocate for sobriety, and she's over a year and a half into being sober. So this is going to be a really cool conversation. Courtney's very open and amazing about talking about this subject. So I'm just going to get Courtney on here.
Hi.
Hello.
Sorry, I was trying to figure it out for a second.
No, it's all good. You're right on time. And I was just introducing myself to team and what we're going to be talking with you about today.
Awesome.
And we are all so happy that you're joining us. And
Thank you so much for having me, seriously.
Of course. Yeah, we are amazed with you and your journey with sobriety. And it's a very, very important topic, as you know. And I know that it's touched many of us. And I think either personally or through a friend, family member, someone in our community. And yeah, we're just very excited for you to be sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much.
And so you've been sober for over a year and a half. Yeah. And congratulations. That's an amazing milestone.
Thank you.
I just want to learn more about your journey with alcohol. And let's just start from the beginning and just hear your story there.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to say I'm not an expert. I'm not a therapist or a doctor, but I really think that being open about my sobriety journey can help others, who are struggling. And I think sometimes mental health and sobriety in general can be kind of hush-hush or, not talked about as much. And I really love sharing my story because I hope that someone today who's listening, that it touches them. And I think that's honestly what's most important for me. Not only does it keep me sober by sharing my story, but I hope that it can help, someone else be sober. And so, kind of from the beginning, I had anxiety ever since I was really, really little. One of my close friends actually lost her family in a plane crash. And I think that's where all my anxiety started. I wouldn't want my parents to leave me. I would be in school and get homesick. And that's where it all started. And then when I was in 8th grade, I had my first drink. And I remember just having that tequila shot and the anxiety in my body just immediately going away. And soon after that, I kind of used it as a coping mechanism, but didn't really realize until I got to college and was blacking out all the time that it was really a problem. And at first, I thought everyone was blacking out too.
Yeah.
But that's just not normal. And I was acting like a different person, ruining relationships with my family, friends. Towards the end of my sobriety, I was dating someone and kind of ruined that relationship. And it just all, hit me one morning. I woke up after blacking out one night and doing something really stupid, and waking up and calling my doctor and being I don't know what's going on. And she was you really should not be alive right now. And that's when it just clicked for me. I was if I keep doing this, drinking and behaving like this, I'm not going to be alive. And it just really clicked for me in that moment. People say you have a bottom most of the time to get sober, and that was my bottom. And I hope other people, out there who are struggling with this don't have to get to that sort of bottom. But yeah, that's kind of really what led me to getting sober. I used to think that had anxiety and depression, and drinking was a side effect of that. But once I cut out the alcohol, I realized that no, alcohol is my problem and anxiety and depression is a side effect of that. But at the same time, I still get days where I'm anxious. I still get days where I feel depressed. You get sober and they say that you get that kind of pink cloud when you first get sober, which is true. Like, you feel great, you are great, like, but then it all sort of, it all sort of like, you're like, okay, like a couple months in, and you're like, okay, I'm sober now. And other things come up, like behaviors that I did when I was drinking still kind of fizzled into me being sober. And if I didn't get sober, I would never be able to work on those behaviors. And so that's what's been like really eye-opening for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like your whole journey of how, and you're young too, may I just add,
Yeah.
to be speaking so eloquently about this and being so open about it is very amazing. And it's interesting because I have not struggled with sobriety, but I have struggled with anxiety and depression. And
Yeah.
at one point I struggled. So for me, my coping mechanism of choice that wasn't very healthy was an eating disorder, right? I felt like I could have control over situations. And it's interesting when you shared how, when your friend lost their family in this terrible, tragic accident, that's so understandable that that would affect you like that, because a lot of times we're so young, we don't even understand where it was all coming from.
Yeah.
So you shared that really well. I appreciate you sharing the whole scope of all of this. What would you say to somebody who is supporting a loved one who's struggling with substance abuse? What would you say to that person? Because it's really difficult to navigate. It can be hard to know what to say.
Yeah. I, asked my boyfriend, my family, kind of this question because I feel like it comes more from someone who's supporting someone who's been sober. And I wrote down what they said, so let me just pull that up super
Oh,
quick.
amazing. Thank you.
Um, well, first of all, if someone has a relative who is still using like drugs and alcohol, it's like sad to say, but that person has to get there themselves. Like, for so long, my parents told me, like, you need to cut out drinking. And I would switch from liquor to wine, and then
Mm,
like that wasn't working, so I'd switch from wine to beer. And then after that I found myself going to like two drinks and that's it.
mm,
And then I found myself focusing on keeping control of those two drinks, that I
mm,
couldn't focus on any social situation around me. And I really think, a lot of people say this, but that person has to get there on their own before, like, you can encourage them as much as you want for them to get sober,
yeah.
but that person has to fully get there on their own and come to that realization. And I can't even tell you how many times, like, my brothers, my family, like, told me, you have a drinking problem. Like, it's just not like you act like a different person when you drink. And I tried so many different things. And then when I finally cut out alcohol, like, it just all made sense. But, being sober, I'm so lucky to have such a good support system. I have parents, I have three brothers who, I'm the oldest of four, but I have three brothers
Wow.
who are absolutely amazing. Two are identical twins. They're still in college.
That's so
And
cool.
then
I
I
have two
know,
identical younger twin siblings. They're two sisters.
I love that. I love when I meet someone else who has twins, because I'm like, you get it. Because
Yeah.
my twin brothers are kind of like the same people.
Yeah.
But
Oh my gosh.
yeah. And then I have another brother who lives in New York City. I call him my older brother just
Aw.
because, he is like that older brother for me. And they all have been so supportive, and I'm just super lucky to have like such a supportive family. My boyfriend, we kind of started dating when before I got sober, and it just didn't work out because my drinking obviously just led me to poor decisions. And if I was in his shoes, I would understand. I wouldn't want to put up with me either.
Mhm.
But we recently, like a year after I got sober, we reconnected, and are now dating. And he is just such a big support for me.
Aw.
He loves me for me. And he isn't sober. He drinks. And I think, like when we first started dating, he was like, "Are you comfortable with me drinking around you?"
Mm.
Um, and I personally hope that people drink around me. You know,
Right.
that may not be for everyone who's sober, but I don't
Yeah.
like to be treated differently because I'm sober. I don't like people to,
Right.
not drink around me. Um, but that also gets to like a certain line, like I
Yeah.
don't want to be around super, super drunk people all the time.
Right.
Um, but I do like just want people to act completely um, normal around me. So getting kind of back to your question, um, so my dad said that, and this is something that I just think is like so sweet. Um,
Oh.
and he says to never stop loving and supporting them.
Oh.
And my parents have been through the ringer. They've dealt with me, through all my drinking and all my poor decisions. Um, but the one thing they never stopped doing was loving and supporting me. And I just think that's what you have to give like someone who is going through this because, it's not, especially at our age, it's not super easy to get sober. Like everyone's still
Yeah.
going out. Like I'm in New York, one of like the biggest party cities in the country. Everyone's still going out and drinking, and it's really nice to have that support. Like I like to tell my
Mm.
friends around me, or all my friends now around me know that I'm sober, and it's like
Mm.
nice for them to know because they'll check on me or they'll be like, "Do you want a Diet Coke or sparkling water?" Um, and that's super helpful. Um, One of my brothers said just to like be honest and have communication always, like communicate has to
Mm.
go on both ends, and I also think that's super important too. um just really overall, like the biggest thing for me in being sober is just people telling me they're proud of me, like,
Oh.
that's
Yeah.
so important because I am getting sober for myself, like I'm not getting sober for anyone else, but
Yeah.
to know that my family and friends and my boyfriend are proud of me is something that, is so encouraging and like keeps me sober. And I think that's really important too.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it seems like it's so much work to like you put in so much work that you deserve to feel proud of yourself. And that seems like something that's very encouraging for you, understandably, because you've put in all this work and for yourself. So that's
Yeah.
really great to hear. And everything that your family has shared, I really love.
Yeah. No, they're the best. I think my brothers are on here right now, actually. Listen.
Oh.
But yeah, and there's still things that I have to work on. Like a huge habit of mine when I was drinking was lying.
Mm,
And, that's so engraved in my head, just like that constant behavior.
right.
Um, and that's something I'm working on too. Like, I think it's so important to be honest all the time. And that's a big thing, especially with my brothers, that
Mm,
like I'm working on is just being completely honest with them because that just has helped rebuild my relationship with them.
mm. It's I love hearing that because even my sisters and I, we have all had our own mental health struggles, and that's something we talk about too, is we always maintain honesty with each other. And although sometimes it's hard and it hurts, it in the long run pays off significantly
Yeah.
for a relationship, for everybody. So I'm really happy to hear that because in my own life personally, I resonate with that too,
Yeah.
with the honesty aspect.
Yeah. I'm trying to look at what else I wrote down. Um, yeah, my boyfriend also said that, it's really important, like I said, to not make them feel different, to not like treat them
Right.
differently because they're
Yeah.
sober. Like just because someone eliminates alcohol, it's also kind of like someone like not eating gluten anymore. You don't
Right.
not eat gluten in front of them.
Yeah,
Like,
that's actually a great example. That's a great example.
so I think that's like really important too. Um,
Yeah.
is to treat them the same. My family and my boyfriend still always ask me like, is it okay if I have a drink? And like,
Mm,
I really respect that, and appreciate that. And most of the time I say yes, but sometimes like if I'm just like having a bad day or like really not in the mood to be around alcohol,
right.
I'll just say no, and they respect that.
That's amazing. That's very smart. Like, I love the way that you all communicate with each other. Like you said earlier, communication is super important.
Yeah.
And I also like too what you talked about of how, you're still you're a year and a half into being sober. And when you become sober, it doesn't mean you become perfect as a person. And that's
Yeah.
actually okay. I think
Yeah.
that's amazing that it's like, I think some people might have an idea of, oh, if I become sober, I have to be perfect. That means I'm going to be,
Yeah.
and that's okay that you're not perfect. You're human, and
Yeah.
it's all part of the journey. Like, that's normal for everybody.
Yeah. No, I'm like far from perfect. Like I still make plenty of mistakes. But I think what's important about that is, when I make a mistake, I don't use like what I used to use, which is alcohol to cope with that.
Right.
Part of being sober too is like really sitting in your emotions and like feeling those emotions, like feeling uncomfortable. Like that's not always the best feeling to feel.
Yeah.
My family just went to Africa, and like my biggest fear was like getting on a plane in Africa,
Mm,
just like with my family friends who passed away. And
right.
I was so terrified. And I did it, and I did it sober, and like I overcame my biggest fear.
That's amazing.
And it was like, it's like the little things. Like I could be sober during that moment and I could get over my anxiety. Whereas like in the past, I would be like, have a bottle of wine before I went on that plane, like
Right.
just to cope with the anxiety.
Right. That's like, I love that. It's just like all the small little wins along the way that build your confidence in yourself.
Yeah, no, 1,000%.
That's awesome. I love that. I actually had flight anxiety too, and I've been in therapy for like, I don't know how long now, but I recently traveled to Europe with my family and I had a similar experience. I was like, okay, I'm okay. I don't feel
Yeah,
anxious. We're doing this. This is okay. It's
yeah,
like an 8-hour flight. Africa seems like it'd be a much longer flight though.
yeah. No, it was 2 9-hour flights.
Ooh,
I slept
man.
most of it, but
Oh,
watched
nice. That's
movies.
good.
But it was a long flight.
It's a very long flight. That's great though. Another thing uh, that I want to ask you.
Mhm.
So now that you are sober, what are some things, like you said, like feeling your emotions or things like that? Like, what are your coping mechanisms now? Like, how are they different from before? So instead of using alcohol, what now do you do instead when you feel anxious, for example?
So I like would use alcohol to cope with like all my anxiety. Like before going on a first date, I would have like 3 glasses of wine, or like before going on a plane, I would have 3 glasses of wine. Like that was just my coping skill from like since I said in 8th grade when I had that shot of tequila, and like my body just like removed the anxiety.
Right.
Uh, so when I got sober, I had to come up with like all these new um, coping mechanisms. I was lucky enough to have a sober coach when I got sober, so she helped me like stay accountable, stay sober. Um, she was kind of like my go-to, kind of like a therapist as well. But I found that working out is super helpful
Mm,
when I feel anxious. Um, call a friend who's also sober and like kind of talk it through, because most likely they've gone through the same thing.
right.
Um, I pray. I'm a Christian, so I go to church and I pray, and I find that super helpful. Um, and honestly, just like telling myself that like I'm gonna be okay,
Right.
like everything's gonna be okay. Um, or even like calling one of my brothers or my boyfriends and like talking through it with them, and just having that, um, like that go-to person who
Mm.
understands you, understands your anxiety, and can like help you get through it.
I really like that you talked about the communication piece again, because I feel like, and I want to know what you think, like what this happened, like if this happened with you, because for me, for my coping mechanism, if I got anxious by something,
Mm-hmm.
I would self-isolate and I wouldn't communicate and it would make things worse. Was that your experience? Is that you kind of isolate yourself and, kind of not talk about it with anybody, try to do it all but on your own? Was that your experience?
Yeah, I try not to isolate, but I can be like a little standoffish. Like some people, I just come up, I will be standoffish, and like just people can tell that something's wrong, and
Mm,
I'm really working on just like saying how I feel immediately in the moment instead of acting super like weird or anxious. Um, and I find personally, I'm also an extrovert, so I just love being around people. The more I isolate myself when I'm anxious, like the worse my
mm,
anxiety gets, because you're just sitting there and you're ruminating in your thoughts. Like if I'm
Yeah.
anxious, I'll go outside and go for a walk, or I'll put on reality TV. Or,
Nice.
you know, since I got sober, I'm a huge dessert person. Like I love candy, I love ice cream, like I love desserts. My family sometimes like makes fun of me and says I need to eat a little bit healthier, but I treat myself to dessert
That's
every
great.
day, sometimes twice a
Nice.
day.
You're like my sisters. My sisters do the
Yeah,
same thing. They always have like a piece of chocolate or like something going.
yeah, it helps me. And like I think
Yeah.
because I was such a big wine drinker that there was so much sugar
Yeah.
in that like my body still craves sugar,
Mm.
but there's other ways to get sugar.
Yeah, that's
That
really smart.
fine.
I think that's really smart
Yeah.
that you go about it that way. And so we've gotten through your advice. We are also looking at, so looking back on this
Yeah.
year, what is one thing you wish you had known about mental health and sobriety?
Oh my gosh. That's such a good question. Um, when I first got sober like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago almost, because I had like a little hiccup along the way, but I didn't know that, like, I thought everything would just be perfect. Like we talked about earlier, like I thought my
Yeah,
life would just get magically better. Like
right.
when I got sober, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get like the guy I was dating back who I really liked, or like my family's just gonna immediately like accept me and immediately want to be like super close. Like I was super close with my brothers for a while, and then like when my drinking got worse, I kind of broke that relationship. And
Right.
when I got sober, I thought my relationship with them would come like immediately back. But like I'm a year and a half sober, and I'm still working on, getting close with my brothers again, and
Right.
I'm there. And the trip to Africa like really helped my
Oh,
relationship with them, but it takes time. Like
right.
everything takes time, and I am so impatient. Like I want everything like this. Like I want everything to be fixed like this. Like if I
Right.
get in an argument with someone, I want it to be repaired like this. And I've just really learned to be patient, and that the behaviors that I had when I was drinking, like even though alcohol's away, like they can still come up, and I have to work on those behaviors too.
Mm. I love that you talk about patience too, because
Yeah.
I'm very impatient as well. So what you're talking about, I fully understand. And how do you manage expectations along this journey? Like you said, your expectation was everything's going to be resolved right away. So did this whole journey of yours, did it teach you to be patient? Like, how did you learn to be patient with yourself? Or was it just something that happened? Like, because I feel like we have expectations, then when we don't meet the expectations, we get disappointed and it
Yeah.
makes it hard for us to keep going. What's your experience with all of that?
I definitely am still impatient. Like I'm sure if my boyfriend or my brothers or any of my friends are on here, like I'm still very impatient. Like I want it done right away. If my
Right.
boyfriend and I get in a disagreement, like
Resolved.
I can't give it space. Like I want it resolved right away. Um, and I'm still working on it. Like I'm still trying to learn how to
Right.
pause, um, and think on things before I react, or think on things like on all of it just before it will get better. Like
Right.
it's a it's a huge learning lesson for me. Like that's one of the main things that I still have to work on, is being patient.
Yeah. I'm the same, and I totally understand. And it reminds me too when you talked about when you became sober. I started this drug for a health condition I had, and I was sick for like many, many years, and it affected my
Mhm.
relationship with my family for a while because I just wasn't myself, and it was hard. And I remember when I started this drug, I thought everything would fall into place, and it didn't because, just because some area of your life has gotten resolved, it doesn't mean that everything else is automatically gonna be better.
Yeah.
So I really resonate with what you say there, and I also think too, like we're both in our 20s. And I feel like learning how to be patient, learning how to communicate, all of that is part of our age too. I think that's something that
Yeah.
I definitely keep learning with each year. Like each year I turn, like I just turned 25 this year, and I thought, okay, like this is the year I'm going to be a proper adult.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well, I still have things to learn and I still have things to work on and improve and grow. And that's okay. Like, that's normal. Like, hearing your story for me even is something that makes me feel okay with being imperfect and okay with when I make mistakes. And it's not about whether or not you make mistakes, it's how you recover from them. That's what I'm really learning from you today as well. It's like,
Yeah.
it's amazing to, it's not, oh, you know, it's not about anybody being perfect because none of us are. But it takes incredible strength and character to go through something really difficult and hard and come out of it amazing, just like you. And the amazing part is that you're still learning and growing along the way. So I really feel inspired by what you have shared. And I'm sure our audience would say the same of you,
Yeah.
Courtney.
No, it's really true. You know, I made so many mistakes when I was drinking, and I made so many poor decisions where I would like wake up the next day, and I was a blackout drinker most of the time, so I would wake up and not remember what I would do the
That's
day before. And I would look at my phone, or, you know, like I would have had like a couple missed calls from my mom and like who was worried about me. And I would wake up and look at my phone and just like, you know, they call it anxiety. Like that
right.
anxiety would be like worse. Like my anxiety would be 1,000 times worse. And then like I would immediately want to keep drinking after that because it's like I have anxiety and like the only way to get rid of this is to keep drinking.
Right.
Um, and now that
Irony.
and now that I'm sober, like it's so nice waking up and not having like anxiety. Like I still go out in New York City with my friends like all the time. Like I will go out till 3, 4 in the morning. Um, and people will probably think that's crazy,
No.
but like I still love going out and having fun. And what the great part is like I don't have to worry about like what I did the night before. I don't
Right.
have to worry about like who I said something mean to, or you know, I'm not single anymore, but like when I was single, like, oh, what boy did I like call like 5 times,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah.
um, and so it is really nice like not waking up with that hangover, like not, you know, like regretting something that I did. And I think that's like one of the most beautiful things about being sober is like you're in control of the decisions you make.
Yeah.
And for so long, like in my drinking, it would just be easy to just blame like something I did wrong on alcohol. Um, but at the same time, like I would have to take responsibility because I'm the one, like, yes, it's the alcohol, but I'm the one that, you know, made the decision. And I'm the one that also made the decision to drink. So like that's a big part of it too for me is taking accountability because I would always make excuses or always blame something on someone else. And I've really learned like in my sobriety to take accountability for my actions. And as another part of like getting sober, just kind of to like change that. I've also like really realized who like my friends are and the people I want to surround myself with. Um, Not that I like lost a bunch of friends when I got sober, but I really like when I got sober, I really realized that I don't need like 20, 30, 40, 50 friends. Like I want the people who support me, who like are proud of me for being sober, who don't treat me differently. And I'm just really thankful to have like the friends who I have today. And, you know, I'm thankful for some things that I've had to cut off. Like I've had to cut off some relationships. I've had to like move away from some friendships. And that's okay too. Like everything is a learning lesson for me. And I'm also thankful for all the friendships I've made in sobriety. You know, there's so many sober people in New York. When I first got sober, I was like, oh, great, it's going to be like a bunch of like 80-year-old men smoking cigars. Like, I'm going to have no friends. Like, no one else is going through what I'm going through.
Right.
And when I got sober, um, I involved myself in the sober community and have met girls just like me who are sober. And that's what's been amazing is so many people now are realizing that, you know, let me try sobriety. Or like so many restaurants now in New York have mocktails or
Yeah.
like non-alcoholic beer, like non-alcoholic wine, which is nice. So there is like a great sober community in New York, and that's like what I found is amazing. Like I'm not like with a bunch of 80-year-old men. Like there's a bunch of people my age just like me who've gone through the same stuff, who've made the same crazy decisions. And that's what's been really nice too, is like making friendships with people who also know what you're going through.
Yeah, that's it. I love that because it also teaches people that like what I'm learning is that being sober doesn't mean you can't have fun. You can still have fun and enjoy your life and find people to
Yeah.
enjoy your life with. I remember even once, like, I went out with a couple of friends to a disco for fun, and I decided I wasn't drinking that night. I don't really drink that
Yeah.
much. I probably haven't had a drink in a really, really long time.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting because all the girls I was going with were like, oh, I'm so relieved. Like, I didn't really want to drink. So I'm glad you're not. So I'm not going to either. Like, it's so
Yeah.
interesting how you think, oh man, I'm going to be the only one not drinking there, or everyone else is going to be drinking. And really, it was interesting for me to see like, oh, they're just relieved. They don't really want to drink. Like sometimes it can be a real social pressure, I feel like.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And I went to University of Georgia, which is like a huge party school.
Mm,
I joined like a sorority and everything, so it was really like in that whole party scene.
yeah.
And I think I just like got there, and I went to boarding school, so like drinking, we didn't really drink that much in high school. So when I got to college, I just like dove right in, like head first, like drank all the time, and blacked out all the time, and just became a different person.
Mm,
Um, and I think it was also that like social pressure. Like I wanted to fit in. Like I wanted to keep up and drink like as much as other people were drinking. And everyone has like their different like limits that get them drunk. Like some people
yeah.
it may take them 6 drinks. Like for me, I would have one drink and I would be hammered.
Yeah.
Like
I'm the same way.
yeah,
Doesn't take much.
yeah. So I think and after college, like I still acted like I was in college and still
Mm,
drank same amount that I did in college until I looked around me and was like, okay, so people aren't still doing this. Like, this is not college anymore. This is the
right.
real world. Like, this behavior is like not normal.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I actually remember talking to some friends about this too, about how there's like a huge transition there from college and university to when you're out of it and how much it changes. Like the social, like what you do to be social too. Like I remember when I was in my early 20s during those years and everyone would just hang out at a party. Everyone would drink and that was the way people socialized. And now, now that we're in our mid 20s, I notice people are more like, let's go for coffee or let's do this other thing. That's like a sober activity. Like no one's as into drinking as much, I guess, or as much as they were in college and university.
Yeah. And I think like with our generation too and social media, like everyone is always posting on Snapchat or Instagram at like parties and like, like drinking things and all of that. And for me, like I still have so much fun being sober. Like I still will
Yeah.
go out and dance like till like 1 or 2 in the morning. Like my boyfriend and I went to like a club the other weekend in New York, just the two of us, and we danced for
Oh,
like 3-4 hours.
I
And
love that.
I honestly have more fun being sober because like I said, I don't have that anxiety the next day.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what's great. Like too is like I still have just as much fun. And it's also great because now people like my siblings or my friends don't have to worry about me because everyone
Mm,
worried about me when I would go
of
out. One time I like got really drunk and wandered off and turned off my location.
Oh, that's scary.
Like something could have happened to me and
Yeah.
I don't know why I did it, honestly. Like I think like I said, I was a different person when I drank, but
Yeah.
like my family and friends were really worried about me, and of course they still worry about me because everyone worries about everyone. But
Yeah.
I think they sleep better at night too, knowing that like I'm okay and they don't have to like constantly worry about me like they were when I was drinking.
Yeah. It's amazing to hear that when you start taking care of yourself and doing good things for yourself, it actually does good for everyone around you too.
Yeah,
It's like enlightened self-interest, It's
yeah,
like what's good for me is good for everybody else too when it
yeah,
comes to that.
exactly,
The
exactly.
positive benefit of that.
Yeah. it's like my positive actions are helping someone else.
Yeah. And we are 30 minutes in, so I just want to check in with you for time, if you're okay with time, because
Yeah, I can be on for like as long as you
okay,
need me on. I'm good.
okay,
I don't have
okay,
any plans. Just gonna go work out after this.
nice, okay. So I just want to make sure because you've answered all of our questions so well, and it's
I
amazing
want to
talking
look
to
at
you.
them and see if there's like one that
Yeah, if there's anything we're missing, please.
um I think something too that's important is like the question you asked where it's like, would you encourage or wait, no. Were you receptive to people's comments when they voice their concern? Um, if you weren't, how did you find them helpful? And at first, like when people would come to me and say like, I'm worried about your drinking, like I would just kind of dismiss it, and I was like, don't worry, it's just my anxiety, like I'm in therapy, I'm working on it.
Mm,
Or like I would always compare myself to someone else and be like, well, so and so's like blacking out like me too, like it's normal. um and then like once I started seeing the mistakes I was making for myself, like I missed a job interview, I
mm,
like ruined romantic relationships, like my friends started losing trust in me because I would like lie about my drinking or
mm,
like sneak in the corner and like get an extra shot. And once it finally started like clicking for me, like, okay, I'm missing a job interview, like I'm ruining romantic relationships, like my best friends like from Connecticut since was little, like are distancing themselves from me. Like
mm.
I kind of played the tape forward and was like, I don't want to be married with kids and having to deal with this.
Right.
Like I don't want to have to push away my husband, or I don't want to have to like lose custody of my kids because like I'm out drinking or drinking to cope with my anxiety. And although like I'm so young when I got sober,
Yeah.
not so young, but like in my early 20s when I got
Yeah.
sober,
Yeah.
like I feel so good that I am sober today because everyone has a dream and an aspiration, and mine is really to just get married and have kids. Like I adore little kids. Like I can't wait to
Mm.
have kids of my own. Not now, but like down the
Yeah.
road. And I'm so glad that I got sober now so that I don't have to have kids and like ruin my family. I'm lucky enough to I have the best family. Like my family is super close, and that's something I want to carry on into my own family. And I um yeah, I just know that like by getting sober at this age, like I will be able to have like have a family, and not have to like have my drinking ruin it. And I think that's like one of the things too that's super important to me, and like why I'm so proud that I got sober now is that I don't have to worry about it when I'm older or
Yeah.
like have the side effects like of my drinking when I'm older.
Yeah. That's amazing. And it seems like that's having that vision for your future for you was something that was very motivating for you, or at least eye-opening when it came to you becoming sober.
Yeah. Sorry, what was your question? I was reading the comments at the bottom.
Oh, that's my mom. You should be so proud of yourself, Courtney.
Oh, thank you.
No, I was just saying that I love that having a vision for your future is what seemed to be the catalyst, or at least something that made you more aware of how drinking was impacting your life and how it could impact your future. And that seems like a
Yeah.
real motivator for you to get sober.
I'm really big on playing the tape forward, even like in like being sober. Like if I'm out, I'm not gonna lie, like I still will have cravings at times where I'll be like walking down like the streets in the West Village and someone will be having a glass of rosé and I'm like, oh, that sounds so nice to like have a glass of rosé on a summer day. Um, but something I find so helpful is I play the tape forward in my
Mm,
head. So I'm like, okay, so if I pick up a drink right now, like have a glass of wine, what's gonna happen? I'm
mm,
definitely not gonna be able to stop at one glass. Like I'm
right.
definitely gonna have like two or three. Um, I'm gonna have to start over my like sobriety day count. Like I'm a year and a half um, I'll have 2 years in February, and I'll have to start over, like, from the beginning. You know, my parents and family will probably be like, will lose trust in me. It's just, I really play the tape forward of like, okay, my boyfriend will definitely break up with me because he doesn't want to date me when I'm drinking.
Right.
Um, and it's just, I play the tape forward. I'm like, okay, so that one glass of wine is going to lead to all of these things. Like, it's not worth it.
Right.
And that's something that I like is a huge, um, like so helpful for me in my sobriety is like playing the tape forward. And like being 26 in the city, like everyone drinks around me, and it does sound nice at times. Like it, like having a glass of wine or, you know, having a margarita sounds nice. But also another thing is like we talked about, there's so many non-alcoholic um, beverages now, and you know, for me, I have to drink 0.0. I don't want to drink like it says sometimes it's like may contain like 0.5% alcohol.
Oh, wow.
I won't drink that. It won't do anything to me, but I think it's just like the
Just
thought
for
that there's
you.
like, alcohol in my body that like I don't really, you know, want to go down that path.
Yeah.
But I have found I love Heineken Zeros. They now make Corona
Oh,
0.0s, which I
wow.
found, which was like my favorite beer, but I found them in the Germany airport, and it was like 8 o'clock in the
Oh
morning in
my gosh.
Germany, and I like ran over to my family, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, they make Corona 0.0." They're like,
All
"Okay,
right.
like you're just clearly an alcoholic."
The
No, they
taste must
didn't
be
say
good
that,
though.
but like I was really excited. And
Yeah.
my boyfriend's like, it's my mission to find Corona 0.0 in New
Oh,
York. And they also make great 0.0 wines, great 0.0 Aperol spritzes. Like, so
wow.
you can still have those. You know, some sober people don't even like going down that path because it can trigger
Right.
them. But for
Yeah.
me, it doesn't trigger me at all. It makes me feel like more like involved in the social scene that I'm in.
Right.
Um, and I've never really had problems except like one time I was at a restaurant, and like I was like with a group of girls, and they decided not to drink that night either. And the bartender came over, the waiter, and was like, do you want a drink?" And I was like, "No, like I'll just get a Diet Coke." And he was like, "Come on, the night's young, like have a drink." And I was like, "No, I really can't drink
Mm,
alcohol." And like sometimes people will like put that pressure on you without knowing.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, but most of the time, I've like found like I haven't had any problems with that. Um, there has like sometimes I'll be like around new people and I get worried about saying I'm sober, but
Right.
like for example, this summer I went to the Hamptons with like my boyfriend and a bunch of his friends, and most of them I'd never met before,
Mm,
and I was like open and was just like, no, I'm sober, and everyone accepted me and treated me completely normal, and that's like
sweet.
all I asked for is
Yeah.
just because I'm sober, just to treat me like normally and just act
Yeah.
like your normal self. Like continue on with what you're doing and um don't change just because there's someone who doesn't like drink alcohol anymore. Just like what we talked about again, like if someone is allergic to gluten,
Yeah.
don't not eat gluten in front of them.
Yeah. I love that analogy.
That's like my favorite analogy because
Yeah.
I don't want to be treated
Yeah.
differently. Like that's what I found. Sorry, that was like a long tangent
No,
thing.
no, I love it. You're giving so many great tidbits of knowledge here. I love it. I'm just here to listen and learn, as we all are here. So you are so great and so vulnerable at sharing everything. Like it's amazing. It's so easy to talk to you about this, and that's a
Yeah.
real gift for all of us
Yeah.
listening.
No, and it's super helpful, and it's also nice having, like I said, like my brothers and my boyfriend, you know, sometimes with me when I go out, because if someone does like pressure
Right.
me, like one time I was out, someone literally shoved a shot in my face, and a person who I was with, I forget who it was like, she literally is sober, don't give it to her.
Don't
And
do
like the
it.
person was like, "I'm so sorry," but it was like
Uh,
in my face, like I could
right.
smell the tequila. Honestly, the smell of that stuff like actually makes me
Wow.
gag now. Like
Wow.
it doesn't even sound appealing.
Wow.
Um, like I don't like the smell of like weed. I don't like the smell of like I really hate the smell of like vodka or tequila, like or any sort of liquor. Um, Wine and beer doesn't really bother me, but like weed and tequila and vodka, like that smell like actually makes me like gag.
Wow. Wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah,
And that's
it
great.
is
I'm glad
really
to, yeah.
interesting. Cause like before, I mean, drinking like I drank before. Like I wasn't a drinker who like drank every single day. However, that's how my drinking kind of progressed at the end. Like I was an everyday drinker, but I really wasn't an everyday drinker. It was more of like I would start drinking and I wouldn't know when to stop. Like
Mm.
there was no cutoff limit for me. Like I wouldn't like once I was getting tipsy or drunk, like I wouldn't stop. Um and that was like my huge problem. And also like drinking, like what's my intention in drinking? My intention was to like a glass of wine will immediately take away my anxiety, or like I'm going out with friends who I haven't really met before, like let me take 3 shots. Like it was like those types of intentions and those types of things that I just came to realize were like not like the best way to handle it.
And when you, so, so it sounds like feeling anxiety is what triggered you to drink. That was your
Yeah.
intention. And it's interesting you talk about this because I recently watched this podcast with Tom Holland talking about he decided to go sober recently,
Oh,
and he was saying a
really?
similar thing. Yeah, and you'd probably love it, but it reminds me a lot of what you're talking about of how he just realized like it was just a social habit for him, and it
Yeah.
helped him relax socially, and
Yeah.
that it's just and so when you're out now, like do you get anxious like when you're out in social situations like in that same situation now that you're sober? When you get anxious, what do you do? Like, what helps you? Because now you're not reaching for a drink. So what
Yeah.
helps you? Because I feel like also when you're in a social situation, you can panic when you feel anxiety. You're like, I don't know what to do. Like, there's all these
Yeah.
people here. So what do you do in those
That's
situations?
like such a good question because like even I'll still go out and it could be a random night and I could be with close friends, but sometimes like I will get anxious or just like this is too much, like too much partying around me. Um, and I'll usually just like go up to my boyfriend and be like, I'm ready to go home. Like I'm
Mm,
ready to leave. And sometimes that's just what I have to do. Like I have to remove myself from the situation. And my boyfriend is good at like really understanding it, and I think it's also really important for people who are dating someone who's sober. um they don't exactly, like my boyfriend said to say this, but they don't exactly like understand exactly what you're going through,
right.
but it's like we talked about before, it's so important to communicate and it's so important to like respect the person who's sober because whatever they need, like you should be there for them, and we'll be out and I'll be like anxious and I'll just ask my boyfriend if we can leave and we leave.
Amazing.
um
Yeah.
that's like the one thing that, or like the only thing, like when I'm out and I feel anxiety, it like really works is just like going home and ordering pizza or like eating a bag of Skittles. um that's like a huge thing that is super helpful for me.
Nice.
um and then however, sometimes like I am able to like talk to a friend, or I am able, like if I'm in a place where there's music, to like dance and it will go away. So there are like a couple of other times where I have used other ways to cope with my anxiety, but it's okay to like be somewhere and want to go home. Like
Yeah.
it's okay.
That's a great point.
It's okay to leave. Like um you're really not missing out on anything. Like if you're out with friends, like there will be so many other nights to like go out with friends. Like it's important to take care of yourself, and that's something that I've learned a lot in my sobriety journey is I was such a people pleaser. Like I would say yes
Mm,
to everything. Like I would do things to make someone else happy, but I've realized like I have to put myself first in my mental health and my sobriety. Like I'm sober, and that's the most important thing to me is staying sober. And if I'm in a situation and I'm feeling anxious, like I have to leave. Like
Yeah.
I have to do that to protect myself, because if I go back to drinking, like it I will either end up dead or I will end up like losing everything. And that's why, like, for me personally, like the most important thing to me, I know this sounds selfish, but like I've learned that it has to be myself. Like I have to make sure that I'm safe and I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And sometimes like I do have to make sacrifices and miss things. Like when I first got sober, I missed someone super close to me's wedding, and like I just wasn't ready to go to a wedding like 2 weeks sober and be around all that alcohol, and I
Yeah.
had to be selfish in that moment and protect myself.
But I'm glad that you're sharing that, because I feel like that's something that people struggle with, is
And
having that boundary for themselves. It's great to hear that you choose that. And it's not selfish. The irony is that
yeah,
it's the best, like we said earlier, like doing what's right for you in the long run is what's right for everybody around you too. So I'm so glad that you
yeah,
shared that, because I think a lot of people struggle with that. Sobriety or no, I think just in life, I think some people are,
yeah,
a lot of people are worried about, oh, like, what are they going to think of me? And I don't want to let this person down, and all that
yeah.
kind of, yeah.
Or like I have to say no to this because like I have a hard time saying no, because I don't want to like hurt someone's feelings, or I don't want them to, be mad at me or something else. And I'm still learning. Like I still have to set boundaries with people. Like that's a huge thing for me, is learning to set boundaries. Like I still need to do that. But I've come to realize like when I set that boundary, it feels so much better. Like
Yeah.
you're set like and you're protecting yourself too. Like you have to protect yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that you look out for yourself. Like you're taking care of yourself, and that's great. And I love too that you mentioned how, when you're out and if you're feeling anxious, you're usually with your boyfriend or your brothers or a friend, like someone who understands your situation, understands you, and has your back. And if you're saying, if you say, you know what, I don't want to be here anymore, I want to go home, they're 100% behind you. That seems to be something that's important too, is having someone there to support you
Yeah.
through it.
No, definitely. I don't really love like, and I won't really do it. I won't go into a social situation where I don't know anyone, or
Right?
like where there's not someone that knows I'm sober. Like I really like having that accountability of someone else being there and knowing that I'm sober, because it helps keep me accountable and helps
Mm,
something were to happen, like if someone shoved like something in my face that had alcohol in it,
yeah.
like I have someone there to go to, or someone who can like back me up. And
Yeah.
that's like really, really important.
Yeah, I love that you shared that. And wow, we're almost an hour into this discussion. This has been amazing. Wow, this is so fun. I love it, Courtney. You've been
I
like,
love
I'm
your mom's
serious.
comment. She's so cute.
She's a fan. You have a new fan, Courtney.
No, I
And this is
have, like, I will say, I, from, I was really hesitant at first to be open and honest on social media about my sobriety. Um, you know, what, like, others would think, people who only know me for drinking me, like,
right.
what they would think. And I've truly found, like, being open and honest about my sobriety, I know is touching someone else, like on the phone, whether it's they have a relative who's sober, a relative or friend who has an addiction problem or an alcohol problem, someone who has their own problem and is like scared to be open and honest about it. Like through being open and honest, I've had people reach out to me like that I haven't talked to in years, who are thinking about, reevaluating their relationship with alcohol. And that's what keeps me like being open about it. That's like when you and Mackenzie asked me to speak on this, I was like 1,000%.
Oh,
Like I would love to, because it's important to like share my journey, because there's probably at least 50 other people out there who are going through it.
yeah,
Um, and
100%.
yeah, I don't know, it's just really important for me. And a lot of people who are sober don't love being open and honest, and I understand that too. You know, they like to keep those things to yourself,
Yeah.
but everyone has their own like way of sobriety. Everyone has their own journey, and for me, I really love being open and honest about it because I it's not even for myself, it's more of like I know that it is helping someone else because it's scary. Like when I first, you know, my family for so long talked about me getting sober and wanting me to get sober, and like my now boyfriend, we were like kind of dated, like I said before. I got sober, like he had voiced his concerns. You know, my friends from Connecticut had voiced their concerns.
Yeah.
And like once it finally clicked for me, I like really realized it, and it's scary because I couldn't imagine like myself without alcohol in my life. I was like, how am I gonna ever have like, how am I gonna get married and not have a glass of champagne or like, you know?
Yeah.
And someone who's also sober said to me like, if you kept drinking and having glasses of champagne, you would have no wedding, which is true because I would be so crazy that I wouldn't, or not crazy, I just would not be myself.
Yeah.
I don't really like to use the word crazy, but